The storm came without warning, ripping across the arid plains like a living, furious beast. Lightning tore the night sky into jagged strips of white, illuminating the desert in harsh, fleeting flashes. Rain fell in sheets, turning the sandy ground into a treacherous mire, and amidst the chaos, Ayani, young, resilient, yet exhausted, struggled forward through the mud and wind. Her long dark hair clung to her face, her moccasins sinking into the wet sand with every step, and though her movements were deliberate, there was an unmistakable edge of fear in her eyes. Something was chasing her, though what it was, she could not name. Every glance over her shoulder betrayed the dread that she carried silently, the kind that gnaws at your resolve and makes the heart pound with every step. Malachi, a solitary rancher who had spent more nights in the quiet company of his cattle than among people, emerged from his small cabin just in time to see her. He had never faced danger beyond a stray coyote or a sudden storm, and yet instinct overrode thought. Without hesitation, he removed his thick wool coat, the same one his father had worn for decades, and draped it around Ayani's shivering shoulders. In that fleeting moment, a simple act of kindness bridged two worlds, one harsh and foreign, the other ancient and deeply rooted in a culture Malachi could hardly comprehend. At first, he could only watch as she accepted it, noting the intensity in her dark eyes, the way she clutched the coat like it was more than just fabric. It was a symbol, a gesture loaded with unspoken meaning, though he could not yet grasp its weight. Just until the storm passes, he said almost unconsciously, and for a heartbeat, the wind and rain seemed to pause, allowing two strangers to share a moment larger than either could articulate. Hours later, the true consequences of his simple gesture began to reveal themselves. Along the edge of his property, hundreds of Apache warriors appeared, moving with deliberate precision, forming an unbroken line that stretched farther than Malachi's eyes could follow. Faces, painted eyes steady, they stood in silence, a living testament to honor, vigilance, and the bonds that tied Ayani to her people. The realization struck him with sudden cold clarity. He had stepped into something far older and more powerful than himself. This was no random appearance. This was tradition, duty, and the protective instincts of a proud tribe converging at his doorstep. Fear and awe warred within him. 300 armed men could overrun his homestead in minutes, yet there was no overt threat in their posture. They were watching, waiting, reading, judging. Every heartbeat felt like it echoed too loudly in the charged silence. Malachi had helped a girl in need, and yet without knowing, he had touched a force that commanded loyalty and retribution alike. A force defined by centuries of survival, honor, and sacred codes he had never been taught. For the viewer, the tension is immediate and visceral. The storm outside mirrors the storm within Malachi's mind, and every moment is laced with the question that will drive the story forward. What exactly had he set into motion? How far could a single act of kindness ripple into consequences that spanned life-death and the delicate balance of a culture's honor? The answers, shrouded in mystery and danger, promise a journey into a Wild West world where courage, respect, and instinct collide in ways no ordinary rancher could have imagined. Ayani was not just any young woman wandering the plains. She was the daughter of Dakota, the respected chief of the Apache band that had roamed these lands for generations. From the moment she could walk, she had been trained in the ways of her people, taught to read the signs of the land, to understand the unspoken rules of survival, and to carry herself with a wisdom that belied her youth. Courage ran in her veins as surely as the blood of her ancestors, and every decision she made reflected both intelligence and a deep respect for the rituals and customs that bound her people together. Yet beneath that composed exterior, Ayani carried the vulnerabilities of youth, the quickened heartbeat when danger approached, the uncertainty of navigating the unknown. That night, as the storm raged and she fought against the wind and mud, all of her training was being tested in ways that no ceremony or lesson could have prepared her for. Malachi, in stark contrast, had lived a life of quiet solitude. His ranch was modest, far from the bustling towns or trading posts, and the wide-open plains had been both his home and his only companion. He knew the rhythms of his land, the needs of his horses, and the fickleness of the weather. But he had never faced real danger, never wrestled with life-and-death decisions outside of the mundane struggles of survival. Social interaction had always been a challenge. He was polite perhaps, but distant, unpracticed in the subtle nuances of connection. Love, friendship, loyalty. These were concepts observed from afar, the experiences of others he had watched from his porch or heard in whispered tales from passing travelers. It was this stark difference that set the stage for the story's initial conflict. When Malachi spotted Ayani drenched and shivering in the storm, he did not know who she was. All he saw was a human being in need. Instinct overrode thought. He acted without hesitation, wrapping his coat around her shoulders. That simple, almost careless act of kindness became the first bridge between two vastly different worlds. For Ayani, it was a foreign gesture of generosity, a human connection that carried weight beyond words. For Malachi, it was a glimpse into a culture far older and more complex than he could comprehend, and an unintentional dive into a web of responsibility he had never asked for. In that brief, electric moment, a subtle bond was formed. Eyes met, understanding flickered. Ayani felt the warmth of the coat not just against her body, but as a symbol of trust and shared humanity. Malachi, in return, glimpsed courage and resilience embodied in someone far more capable than he could imagine. Neither spoke more than necessary, yet both felt the depth of that encounter as profoundly as a conversation could convey. This was the moment the narrative pivoted from a simple storm scene into something far larger, a chain of events that would pull them together against challenges neither could have anticipated. And then, as the storm passed and dawn broke, the story's first true twist revealed itself. Ayani was gone. She had vanished into the plains, leaving Malachi as the last person to see her alive. The silence left behind by her absence carried weight, and soon the unmistakable presence of her people began to manifest at the edges of his land. Warriors appeared silent, vigilant eyes sharp as hawks, hinting at the magnitude of the duty Malachi had unknowingly undertaken. He had acted out of instinct and kindness, yet now he faced a storm far greater than the one that had swept the plains: responsibility, suspicion, and the intricate honor codes of a proud tribe. The initial conflict was no longer just about a missing girl. It was about navigating trust duty and survival in a world that demanded both courage and humility in equal measure. This intersection of characters, each bound by their own skills, beliefs, and vulnerabilities, set the stage for a story where action and morality, instinct and tradition would collide in ways that tested not just their abilities, but their very character. As dawn broke over the plains, Dakota, the imposing chief of the Apache band, appeared at Malachi's homestead. His presence alone carried the weight of generations, and the steady rhythm of his boots across the wet earth seemed to echo centuries of tradition and authority. He wasted no words on pleasantries. "My daughter is missing," he said, his voice low but resolute, "and there are reasons to believe she was betrayed not by strangers, but by her own people." The statement hung in the morning air like a storm cloud, heavy and ominous. Malachi's pulse quickened. The danger he had not known even existed now revealed itself in stark, undeniable terms. Malachi, still reeling from the arrival of hundreds of warriors, hours earlier was called upon to join the search. His inclusion was not arbitrary. Dakota explained that the presence of an outsider, someone not bound by internal loyalties, would expose those within the tribe who might act with deceit. Every movement, every glance, every choice he made could serve as a mirror to reveal hidden intentions. It was a test of trust and courage, and Malachi, untrained in both, had little choice but to accept. The journey through the harsh terrain began immediately. The plains gave way to mud-choked rivers and narrow canyons, each step an exercise in vigilance. Rain-soaked footprints traced Ayani's flight, revealing subtle clues of her haste and discomfort. She had been forced to move faster than her injury allowed, leaving traces that only careful eyes could interpret. Malachi learned quickly that survival in this environment required more than strength. It demanded attention, patience, and the ability to read the land, as if it spoke directly to him. Every broken twig, every displaced rock, every ripple in the mud told a story, and the story was growing darker with each mile. It was not long before the first signs of betrayal became evident. Kitchi, a young warrior among the search party, displayed behaviors that didn't match loyalty, furtive glances, whispered signals, and hesitation when the path became treacherous. Dakota's eyes, sharp and discerning, never left him. The tension mounted with every passing hour, the weight of potential treachery pressing down, like the storm that still lingered in Malachi's memory. The sense of imminent danger was palpable. At any moment, an ambush could erupt, and in this unforgiving landscape, mistakes could be fatal. Ayani, though absent, continued to shape the narrative, even from afar. Malachi discovered signs that she had used her knowledge of the terrain to evade capture, leaving markers that only someone attuned to the land could understand. When they reached a particularly narrow gorge, where the risk of confrontation was highest, he found traces of a hidden path, a route known only to those with intimate understanding of the cliffs and streams. Here, the story shifted. Ayani's ingenuity turned her from a passive victim into an active force. Malachi followed these subtle cues, realizing that every move she had made reflected both survival instinct and strategic thinking. The heroine was not waiting to be saved. She was guiding them toward her rescue, demonstrating independence, intelligence, and courage in equal measure. The group moved cautiously, each step measured, hearts racing. The riverbanks were treacherous, the mud sucking at boots, and the canyon walls threatened to close in like the jaws of a trap. Each broken branch or shifted stone could conceal Kitchi's treachery or the ambush set by the conspirators. Malachi, feeling the weight of responsibility for both Ayani and the warriors around him, learned to read the terrain, to notice the subtle differences between genuine danger and calculated deception. With each careful observation, he gained confidence not just in his ability to survive, but in his capacity to act decisively when lives hung in the balance. The tension reached a near breaking point when the party finally approached a hidden clearing. Signs of the betrayal crystallized evidence that Kitchi had led them here, deliberately intending to draw the loyal warriors into a trap. The knowledge hit Malachi with icy clarity. The search was no longer just a rescue mission. It was a test of cunning courage and trust. Ayani's intelligence became their beacon. By following her clues, Malachi could anticipate traps, avoid ambushes, and understand the stakes not just in physical terms, but in the complex web of honor and loyalty that defined her people. As they moved deeper into the canyon, Malachi began to understand something critical. Ayani was more than the chief's daughter. She was a strategist, a survivor, and a symbol of her people's resilience. Every decision she had made, every marker she left behind, was a lesson in bravery, intelligence, and agency. And Malachi, the solitary rancher who had never faced true danger, was learning how to navigate this world alongside her, not as a savior, but as an ally, a witness to her skill, and a participant in the unfolding drama that would determine life or death. The canyon air was thick with tension as Dakota's loyal warriors took positions, their eyes, sharp bows, and spears at the ready. The terrain funneled them into a narrow gorge, perfect for an ambush and perfect for revealing those who had betrayed their own people. The betrayers had underestimated both the chief's instincts and Malachi's growing awareness. Each careful step forward revealed signs of Kitchi's treachery, discarded supplies, altered tracks, and subtle hand signals meant to mislead. It was a deadly chess game played across the rugged canyon walls, and the stakes were life itself. Malachi's heart hammered as he watched the ambush unfold. The loyal warriors were pinned momentarily by arrows striking the rocky walls, a storm of death and confusion descending from above. Yet amid the chaos, Malachi spotted her. Ayani, bound and gagged, perched precariously on a narrow ledge above the attackers. Fear surged through him, but it was quickly replaced by determination. This was no time to falter. His fear was a tool sharpening his focus as he assessed the only possible route, a sheer rock face slick with rain and mud leading to the ledge where Ayani waited. Every step would demand courage, precision, and a steady hand. Ignoring the pounding of his pulse, Malachi began the climb. Fingers found holds in the wet stone boots, slid, and then steadied each movement, a negotiation with gravity and exhaustion. The roar of the skirmish below filled his ears, yet all that mattered was reaching her. Minutes stretched like hours, but finally he stood on the ledge, breath-ragged eyes locking with Ayani's. Relief flashed in her dark eyes, quickly replaced by resolve. "Follow me," she whispered, motioning toward a narrow hidden path that snaked around the cliffside. Her voice carried authority, born of experience and unyielding bravery. Together they moved silent and precise, navigating the treacherous route. Ayani's knowledge of the land guided them, anticipating loose rocks and hidden dips. When they reached a position where Malachi could safely support her, she retrieved the rifle strapped across his back, settling into a shooting stance that spoke of hours spent learning and practicing. Her shot was precise, dropping one of the ambushers and sowing chaos among the betrayers. Malachi covered her flank, deflecting arrows and guiding her movement. They were no longer victim and savior. They were partners, united by necessity, skill, and trust, forged in peril. The tide turned swiftly. Dakota's loyal warriors, inspired by the sudden clarity of Ayani, and Malachi's movement surged forward with coordinated precision. Kitchi's treachery was laid bare, the young warrior's intentions revealed in the way he hesitated, miscommunicated, and faltered under scrutiny. One by one, the betrayers were disarmed and neutralized, their advantage evaporating as quickly as it had appeared. The canyon, once a potential grave, now bore witness to the triumph of strategy, courage, and loyalty. When the dust settled, the relief was palpable. Malachi and Ayani stood amidst the victorious warriors, hearts still pounding, breaths ragged from exertion. The danger had passed, but the weight of what had been overcome lingered. Dakota approached them, his presence commanding yet infused with a rare softness. "You climbed a cliff, faced death, and saved my daughter," he said, the pride in his voice unmistakable. "Your courage is not lost on us." Malachi, dripping wet and exhausted, could only nod, realizing that the solitary rancher who had once feared even the simplest confrontation had now become someone recognized for bravery in the face of mortal danger. Ayani, though still composed, allowed herself a small, satisfied smile, acknowledging not only the physical rescue, but the bond that had formed between them in the crucible of chaos. The coat he had given her earlier, now worn and tattered, remained a symbol of trust and humanity that had sparked the chain of events leading to this moment. For the audience, the tension transforms into catharsis. Every arrow that flew, every calculated step, every decision weighed by life or death is resolved. Malachi's courage is validated, Ayani's skill celebrated, and justice for betrayal executed. The story demonstrates that even in the most extreme circumstances, wisdom, bravery, and collaboration can overcome treachery. The canyon, once a symbol of danger and deceit, becomes a testament to triumph, honor, and the human spirit, a moment of satisfaction and emotional resonance that lingers long after the final arrow has flown. As the sun dipped low behind the horizon, painting the plains in shades of amber and crimson, Malachi stood alongside Dakota and Ayani, feeling the weight and the honor of what had just transpired. The Apache warriors, once formidable and distant figures of authority, now looked upon him with a mixture of respect and acceptance. Malachi, the solitary rancher, who had never known the intensity of real danger or the depth of human connection, had been tested in ways he could never have imagined, and he had emerged not only alive, but honored. Ayani, her eyes reflecting relief, determination, and a quiet pride, remained at his side, the bond forged through peril, now unbreakable. Dakota approached, his demeanor both formal and warm. "You have proven courage, loyalty, and honor," he said, voice steady, yet carrying the weight of generations. "Your actions saved my daughter and preserved the integrity of our people. You have earned our trust, and you are welcome among us whenever you choose." In that moment, Malachi realized that the small gestures and brave decisions of one individual could ripple far beyond their immediate intentions. The coat he had offered Ayani during the storm, an act so simple it had seemed inconsequential, had sparked a chain of events that changed the fate of a tribe and a man alike. The story's lessons were clear even in the quiet aftermath of battle. Acts of kindness, however small, held the power to create profound consequences. A single choice made in the spirit of compassion and integrity could shift not only the trajectory of one life, but of entire communities. Malachi's courage, tempered by empathy, had bridged worlds that might otherwise have remained apart. It was a reminder that morality and bravery are not measured in grand gestures alone, but often in the quiet, decisive moments when human hearts meet and trust is forged. For the audience, this chapter carried a resonance that went beyond the desert and canyon. It spoke to the universal truth that connections between people born of empathy, understanding, and courage can transcend boundaries of culture, background, or circumstance. Ayani's guidance, intelligence, and bravery underscored the importance of listening, respecting, and valuing others' knowledge and experience. Meanwhile, Malachi's journey illustrated that stepping beyond one's comfort, embracing risk for the sake of others, and acting with integrity can open doors to new relationships, recognition, and personal growth. There was a profound warmth in the closing moments. The warriors' relaxed laughter and quiet conversation, replacing the tense silence that had marked the search and confrontation. Ayani and Malachi shared a brief, knowing look and unspoken acknowledgement of what they had endured and what had been achieved. The plains, once a stage of danger and uncertainty, now became a canvas of reconciliation, trust, and shared humanity. It was not simply victory in battle, but a triumph of ethical courage and cooperation, a reminder that even in a harsh world, honor and empathy could prevail. As the final rays of sunlight faded, Malachi reflected on the journey that had begun with a storm and a simple coat. He understood now that the smallest decisions could echo with consequences beyond imagination, shaping destinies and altering the course of communities. Ayani, standing confidently yet gracefully beside him, symbolized not just survival, but the strength, wisdom, and resilience of her people. Together they had navigated danger, betrayal, and uncertainty, proving that trust and courage are the foundations of true heroism. And so, as the screen would fade for the viewers, the story extended a gentle invitation. If you felt inspired by this tale, follow Epic Western Stories for more stories from the frontier. Share your thoughts in the comments, like if this story touched you, and help us continue bringing these timeless legends to life. Every story holds a lesson. Every action can make a difference, and every act of courage, big or small, can leave a lasting mark on the world. In that closing, the audience is left with a sense of fulfillment, reflection, and quiet inspiration that the Wild West, though a place of danger and uncertainty, is also a world where compassion, bravery, and honor can illuminate even the darkest storms.